Well, hey guys, welcome to the studio. I was looking for a new studio desk, and there's some cool stuff out there, but I wasn't really finding a good fit for my workflow and my needs. So I decided to build it myself, do it all custom, and I want to walk you through the materials, the tools, the process, and the thinking that went into building this desk. Hopefully, you'll get some decent ideas from it if you're going to build your own desk. Let's get to it. So, before you start this, it's good to have a plan. Know what you're going to want in your desk and write it down. Make yourself a checklist. See if the desk that you're looking at is gonna check all these boxes, or if you're gonna design it and build yourself like I did, make sure that you get everything that you want the first time. One way to do that is to take a look at what's being offered and what you can buy. This is my old desk. This is a Studio RTA producer station. I still have it. It sits off to the side now, and it still does its thing. And taking a look at this, it had a lot of stuff that I wanted, but it missed out on a few things. First off, I really liked the rack space on the sides. I think there are 13 space racks. I didn't quite need that much, but nice to have. It had a pull-out drawer, which was really good for like a mouse and a keyboard. And I think I was able to put a 3-octave controller onto that shelf. And then up top, it's got a little bit more rack space up here. This thing right here is to hold CDs if you need that, and an extra little pull-out tray for maybe a mixer controller or something like that, and then a top shelf for you to put your speakers on, and it's not quite as wide as the rest of the desk. And this served me well for years. I ended up modifying the hell out of it. And the main thing that I wanted, and this was the thing that I could not find in any production desks out there, I wanted my 88 key controller in front of me, and I wanted it at normal piano height because I do put weight into it, and I do play down. I didn't want it sitting on top of a 30-inch high desk. Normally, the keyboard height on a piano, the keys are about 28 inches off the ground or so at the top of the keys. And so, which means that the shelf that it sat on really had to be about 25 inches high. And that's where I ran into a little bit of weirdness. My knees come up, I'm 6'2". My knees come up to about 24 and a half inches off the ground. So the shelf had to have clearance for my knees. And then with the keyboard on that, and I got just about the right height. And I know what they offer. They offer a pull-out tray on sliders. And they might use really heavy duty sliders that are rated up to, 300 pounds or 400 pounds, real heavy duty stuff. But when I play anything on a pull out slider, I'm very heavy handed. I can get that keyboard bouncing. It might be able to support my weight, but if I'm really playing with a rhythm, this thing can start bouncing up and down. I needed the keyboard to be absolutely stable at all times, so I had a solution for it. And here was the solution. There's the 88 key controller. Here's my workspace with a nice pad here. And when I need to record, play on the keys, there I go. And I'm back. And you saw this top tray move back about 6 inches to do that. And the question is, what if I have a controller that I really need to get at the full access? And this shelf can move back the full 12 inches, and I just take my keyboard and put it up on top of the desk, and I can do the full 12 rollout. The other concern that I had was with my workspace. What do I have within hand's reach of me, and what do I not really ever need to touch? Plus, cable management. What's it going to look like if I have cables laying around everywhere? So this desk actually has two tops. One where you saw the keyboard laying, and that's actually a whole top there that holds things like my Mac Mini, all the hubs, all the USB wiring, power strips, all the power cables, and everything like that. And then there's a second top on it, which that's where you saw the slider. And that's where I put my video monitors, my mixing controllers, my console one, my analog mixer, my push two, stuff that I do need to touch. Now, it's also a cool idea, even if you know you're going to build your own desk, take a look, just Google recording desks images, and take a look at what some people have done with their desks. Now, a couple things. You'll see some stuff that has giant access for racks up top. If I was doing mastering, say, and had to twiddle with a lot of knobs on analog rack mount gear, I would want something like this. For me, I knew I did not want the racks up top. I didn't want them within reach. I don't need them. I do have some rack gear, but I'm happy with the rack gear down below. In the rare instance I need to make a change to it, I can just reach down and with one hand or the other and make whatever changes. So as you see a lot of stuff that has the rack mount stuff up top, to me that's a real kind of a waste of space. Even in the big desks I saw, and it's kind of hard to find a desk that supports an 88 key controller and does a good job of it. That's number one. And something that doesn't necessarily waste a lot of your top space with rack space if that's not something that you want to do. If it is something that you want to do, you could probably find something pre-built. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff. First thing I did was I sketched probably 30 or 40 sketches of the different parts and the different layouts and the things that I could have. And I tried to include dimensions to include, well, my knees are going to need a clearance of 24.5 inches. Also, I don't want the desk height higher than a normal desk height, which is about 30, maybe 31 inches tall. How wide do I want this thing? And I went with 7 feet. And I think 7 feet is sort of a magical number for a few reasons. It allows you to do the racks on either side of you, which are 19 inches a pop. It'll still give you 30 inches of knee width. So when I turn, my knees are not knocking from one rack into another. If I did 6 foot, that would be much narrower for me, and I didn't want that. Also, your other option would be maybe 8 foot. And 8 foot's cool, but that's going to start putting stuff greatly out of your reach. You figure your arm's length is probably about 3 feet and 3 feet, and I can just almost reach both sides of a 7-foot desk from here, and with just a slight bit of a lean, I can reach everything on the desk should I need to. So for me, 7 foot was the magic number. To start off, I ordered the wood. It takes about 2 weeks because I got custom sized red oak, and I used Baird Brothers, which I will link below, and they drop shipped it right to the end of my driveway. This is 12 planks of 1x12 red oak in 7-foot lengths, pre-cut. Next step, I went down to Salt City Woods here in Syracuse, New York, and had them do the rip cuts that I would need for 2 of the boards. Big shout out to Tom Derby that runs Salt City Woods for doing the rip cuts for me. Great guy. And now the fun part, the actual build. Here we go. Step 1, the very top. Now, this is the back side of it. You can see that I have 2 7-foot planks here, and then I have 15-inch lengths that are going to be attached to it. And the way that I joined it, you can see these marks here possibly. These are called Kreg, spelled Kreg, and it's a way of joining 2 boards together without having to have like exposed screws or anything. This is the underside of it, so when you flip it over, all you'll see is seamless, perfect connection. It's a screw joint that pulls one board into the other board. I did the same thing with these 15-inch like end pieces. So here's that top all assembled from the top side. So you can see that it's up on kind of stilts here. These are 5.5-inch risers that run back almost fully to the back side of this. And then I have a couple more supports, also 5.5-inch on the back side just for stability. Here's what the underside of that looks like. You can see that here's the top and here's all the Kreg joints holding it together. This is the sliding portion already installed at this point when I took this photo, but you can see the supports here. Here's the 5.5-inch riser on both sides, and that's where we're going to set the track for that sliding shelf into this. And I just used a couple angle pieces back here. Now, the other cool thing about that is this. When this top goes onto the base, all of this is wide open. That sliding tray has plenty of room to move until it comes in contact with this backstop, and that's what stops it. But I can run all kinds of cables through here, and I can say come off the top of the desk and run a cable over to the far side or get anywhere that I want with any kind of cables, including all the way up to the front of the desk. Because remember, I have about 11 inches of clearance. The front extensions on the top were 15 inches wide, and where this riser cuts into it, it leaves about 11 extra beyond that. Is it stable? Yeah, I wouldn't probably jump up and down on top of this desk. If I wanted to make it have more supports, I could, but this is red oak. If you build it out of pine, you probably want to support it a little bit better. Pro tip, once you put this sliding shelf into place, if you ever want to remove it, and you will want to remove it from time to time, it has the little side widgets on the sliders that you kind of pull up the little tabs, and just like opening a drawer, you can actually remove the drawer, but you need access to where those tabs are. So when you are putting this thing together, before you actually screw it all together, drill yourself a nice 2.5 or 3-inch hole into that side support board. That way you can always reach into the sides, hit those little tabs, and yank the shelf completely out. And when you're done with the top, this is what you should see. Whatever width, and the sliding tray's already installed, and it's up on top of those 5.5-inch stilts. I chose 5.5-inch because I knew the height of the keyboard that I was going to put in here. And incidentally, if you look up the specs for your controller keyboard and it says it's whatever height it is, that might not be including knobs. So double check, triple check, measure, and make sure that with that dropped down sliding shelf, and leave yourself a little extra breathing room to be safe. For me, the answer was 5.5 inches, knowing that shelf was going to be down about 3/4 of an inch below that, and I had plenty of room for my Native Instruments S88 Mach 2. So with the top assembled, it was time to move on to the actual base of the desk, which will include the racks and everything. So here's what the underside of that base looks like to start. Again, 7-foot planks. I did leave myself a cutout here about 30 inches wide, like I said, for knee room and room for my feet and stuff like that. And again, you are looking at the bottom of this. From front to back, this is 34.5 inches. Because 1x12s are not really by 12 inch, they're 11.5. So when you run 3 of them, you don't end up with 36 inches, you end up with 34.5. And so I made these support panels just shy and just screwed them in just for support for this. So this is where all the weight of the desk is going to be held. And on these support panels here, that's where I eventually put the wheels. One more thing, I did actually add one more kind of cross support plank when I put the wheels on this thing, and I just wanted to ensure that I had enough support for the base of the desk. So there's a fifth wheel here in the center. You could probably get away with just four wheels in the corners, and I kind of centered them based on where I knew the rack was going to be. Racks can have a lot of heavy equipment in them, so as if it was sort of like riding on a skateboard from side to side, these are kind of centered based on where the rack is going to be. And so the fifth one in the center here, that's just a little bit extra for coolness, extra coolness. But with the wheels off of it, this is what the base of the desk looks like. You can see here's the cutout for where my feet are going to go. You can start seeing the uprights that are going to be used for the racks. Now, I set them up so that they were front to back, like facing front to back, but also with some side support, like an L shape. You can see that really well on this one here. And that's to give the thing stability from side to side. You don't want the desk like built and then just kind of fall one way or the other. L shapes are very strong for that. Now, as far as the width goes, you think 19-inch, and you're not wrong. However, I recommend 19 and an eighth, or even 19 and a quarter. And here's why. If you're just off by the tiniest amount and you do this at 19, there's a chance that you can't recess your rails and get rack geared to fit between them. Some rack gear is actually slightly, just a hair wider than a 19. Something to keep in mind. If you're front mounting your rack rails, it doesn't really make any kind of a difference, but I wanted to be sure. The easiest way to do that is cut a board to 19 and an eighth and literally just slide it between the two, clamp it in. You can see I've got the clamp on it here. And again, we used Kreg screws in from the sides. If you look here, you can actually see there's the screws that are holding this in. Okay, once you get the rack uprights nice and stable, what I did was I put another support in the back of the desk, and I did recess this in 3/4 of an inch because I'm going to have a crossboard back there, and I didn't want it to project out beyond like the footprint of the desk. So this is recessed in 3/4, and for this I just used regular pine. This is from Home Depot. In addition to the wood that I bought from the lumber mill, I also picked up 3 8-foot 1x6s just to cover like internal structure. Nobody's going to see it. You don't even have to stain it. It's going to be out of view. So these side pieces up here, that's just a 1x6 from Home Depot. Try to keep the top of it flush. And I used 10 space rack for this, and the height of this is 19 inches from top to bottom of these racks, as well as being 19 and an eighth wide in between. At this point, we're looking at the underside of the desk here. You can see here's my supports for where the wheels will be attached. I don't have that panel on there for that fifth wheel just yet. But up front here, facing the ground now, because the whole thing is tilted face forward, these are the L-shaped uprights that are going to support the rack. Here's that pine that just runs from front to back. And then here's my top support. And I ran a total of 4 of these from side to side. So in the middle where my feet are going to go, this is going to be nice and wide open. I do end up putting a subwoofer on that shelf in front of my feet. So I wanted that open. And here's a walk around at this stage. Bottom of the desk where the wheels go. All the uprights, all the supports to the back. Ready to go. Okay, here we are, just a little walk around with the wheels attached. I do have all 5 wheels on at this point. So here's what the base looks like, flipped back, wheels down, it's ready to roll around, and it's got all its supports in place. At this point, I start running planks across the top. That's the shelf that the keyboard is going to sit on. Okay, at this point, I left the center area of the base open on the top. Here's a little walkthrough for that. And when this was all set up, you can see that gap that I left in the base. This is really just to run cables through, like the sustain pedal for the keyboard, any wiring that has to get from the racks up into the top area of this base. And remember, once you get wires up there, you're still under the main top and you can run cables anywhere you want. Probably more of a gap than I needed to put here. I probably could have just drilled a 4-inch hole here, but it just seemed to maybe make the desk a little bit lighter. We didn't really need it for strength, and nothing's going to be laying on top of it. Okay, here we're finally seeing the two pieces in the same shot. In the background, you see the base on the wheels, and in the foreground, you can see the top with the sliding shelf, the thing that we built first. Also, you can see I did add this 2x6 that runs the length of the desk, and that's just to give some side-to-side support for the rear uprights in the back of the desk. And remember, I recessed those uprights 3/4 of an inch in, knowing that this board was 3/4 of an inch thick. So everything lined up perfectly. Next up, it was time for the staining, and I chose one coat of cherry stain, just nondescript cherry stain, and 1 pint was plenty to cover the entirety of the desk. And here's where it started to look pretty cool. Up front, you can see here's the base of the desk, all stained, everything that's visible. Like, I didn't worry about that back structural 2x6. No need to stain that. But you can see I have room for my feet. This is the shelf where the keyboard is going to go. This is that wide opening that I left for cabling. And the other thing that I added, you can see over on the sides here, this is like 1.25 inches tall by 3/4 wide. And I forgot to mention I had done this. This does a couple things. One is I know I'm going to have cables on this level, and I wanted to kind of keep everything contained. So if a cable got tugged or something, it wouldn't just pull my Mac Mini out for the side or something like that. It's just for a little extra cable guidance that I put these on here. There's one over here as well. In the background, you can see we have the stain on the very top, and that's going to be just kind of set on top of the base. And I decided really its own gravity kind of keeps it stuck in place there, but I did put 2 screws in that if I ever want to remove the top, I can do that. And I'll show you where those screws go. Now it's starting to look like the desk. You can see everything the way that this is being put together right now. And let me show you where I put those 2 screws. I put them from the base, from the bottom in front of the rack, into this upright here. And I had done this as like at the very last thing that I did once the desk was together. And here's why. You don't want to put the screw in and then put all your rack gear in and then say, oh, I can't reach that screw. I had done all my rack mounting stuff. Everything was done. And I put the screw in on the front side of the rack upwards into that upright. In case I ever need to quickly, say, oh, let me just remove 2 screws and get the top off this desk for whatever reason. I don't have to disassemble my rack to do it. With only 2 screws holding it in, I will say that if I went around the back of the desk and lifted the top, there's nothing really that's keeping it screwed down. So if you want that type of stability, you can add maybe 2 more screws into the back, into those little angled uprights. Let me show you those again. And this is what I'm talking about. On the underside of the top here, these are the little angled uprights that I was telling you about. So they really support the back of the desk, and they are angled, which helps so they it doesn't want to move front back. It doesn't want to move side side. It really can't do anything. If I had come from the bottom and put screws into these uprights, I could have done that. For me, it was overkill. You can do it if you want. So the desk is just staged here where it's going to go. You can see my monitors are going to go on shelves that are bolted into the wall. And just a quick thing, if you're saying, oh, why would you want your monitors that close to the wall? That blue panel is just canvas over studs filled with rock wool. And on the exterior sides, the orange canvas is actually over 8 inches of rock wool in 2x8 studs. So the entire rear of this thing is absorption. So I can be right up against it, and it's not a problem. So here it is with the top pulled forward, and there's the keyboard. And here it is open with the keyboard exposed, with access to the knobs and stuff should I need it. But the nice thing is you can just slide that opening shelf back 6 inches if all you want to do is play, and still have like a computer keyboard and a mouse on that shelf because you only slid it open 6 inches. Or I could just pull wireless keyboard and mouse up off the thing, fully open it 12 inches, and get access to the controller stuff there. Okay, once I had it at that position, I again removed the top. It was not screwed in yet, and took the top off and just did 2 coats of satin finish polyurethane with a light sanding in between each coat, just really to protect me from, me and my coffee. I don't want to leave rings in it. And it looks a little bit nicer. You can also do that to the base. It doesn't really look mismatched. Most people won't even notice it, but call it laziness. I only put the polyurethane on the top. Okay, let's talk about the cable management that went into this thing. First off, this is the entire desk completely assembled, so you can see here's my top. Here's the top of the base, and down here the main part of the base, like where the racks go and stuff. I did cut a 2.5-inch hole for wires that need to come from the rack into this outer area. This is on the far sides of the supports where my keyboard goes. Also, you can see a little trick that I used here. On this 5.5-inch riser, I actually have a 1-inch cutout for cables to make it from the center of the desk over to the side without having to run around the back. This is one of those angled uprights. You're just kind of seeing it on edge, so it's hard to see here. But imagine the wiring that you could put in here. As a matter of fact, my Mac Mini sits right here, and then I got, I think, like 3 hubs, and they're all loaded up with USB stuff. There's something probably like 20 or 30 cables in this area. And then on the front side of this, I have my Mackie Big Knob. I have the video monitor controller, so I can switch my video monitors between my Mac and my PC. I also have the power amp for my NS10Ms with its little volume control. That's all facing me on the front here. So when you look at this thing from the front, you won't be able to tell that there's even a Mac Mini back here and a bunch of hubs. And should I need access to, let me run a different USB wire or something, I just come at it from the side. As a matter of fact, when I look at it from the side, I can see in there and see all the stuff that's there. But trust me, I don't think your clients will see it if you're clever about how you place this desk at all. But man, that is some cable management area. It's almost like you can have an entire desk top, just pile it up with wires and power strips and wall warts and USB and hubs and computers and all your crap, and then put another top on it so nobody sees any of it, and that's your workspace. So I think I did pretty good with this. Let me know in the comments if you think that's kind of cool. Okay, here it is, basically fully loaded with the rack mount gear is in there, my rack drawers, my 88 key controller, everything's ready to go. over here, this is where I was saying, here's my Mackie big knob for volume control. I could have put that on the top of the desk, but I was like, it's got wires coming out of it, and I can easily reach it. I am touching it right now, and I don't have to go nuts to do it. The power amp for the NS10Ms is here. Here's the video controller I was talking about. Over on this side, in this picture, it's not populated yet, but I have a 4-channel headphone amp that sits right here. I also have an additional DI box that runs back into my live mixer, this little Behringer 8-channel thing, just for when the band plays down here. That gives me a DI box up front, so we're not chasing into the back of that mixer for any reason at whatever time. And here it is in context of the studio. So the new desk is this right here. And here's my old desk, that Studio RTA producer station, which still had the left rack installed. It was the only rack left in it. And that's where I run my interface, my XR18 and my 1820 interface, and also my lighting controls, with a few guitars hanging up on the walls, and another keyboard and some little synthesizer station over there. This is what it looks like close up. That's where my interfaces are. And they're in my old desk. And I just have a USB wire that runs from the old desk over to the new desk and hooks up into the Mac. And this is what it looks like from the drum area. When you look over, you can see the new desk, the old desk's on the right of it, and a little bit of keyboard station on the left-hand side. If you've made it this far in the video, I thank you for your time and your patience. This was not really a tutorial how to build a desk or what dimensions. You make those decisions, but I just wanted to share with you some of the thoughts that you could put into your own build. Maybe you like some of my ideas, like the sliding top. Maybe you like my idea of the recessed cable management, kind of the double top, or whatever. Let me know in the comments if you think this is cool. Let me know if there's anything that you would change to make your build different. I'm sure there's a lot of great ideas out there. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment, and I usually try to get back to everybody who leaves a comment, and I'm happy to help. Join us over on Facebook in Recording Tips. And we got a lot of work to do. Let's get to it.